Hey, let's get started. So, the app startup canvas. This is a tie-in for my series on how to build an app. And it covers the problem that I saw with a lot of my app development clients in the startup land, that they just didn't have a solid business foundation for their app. And even if you're trying to do some kind of social enterprise or you've got an amazing dream, you need that solid foundation. And I saw a ton of these when I was consulting. So how do you fix it? How do you fix the problem? Well, there's a simple way to start. Imagine it. Hey, I've got a great idea for an app. Can you tell me, Sarah, just roughly is fine, how much it would cost? Well, that was a question that I fielded literally hundreds of times in the decade or so that I was doing mobile app development in startup co-working spaces after I quit Google and Nokia and ran my own app consulting business. The number one thing that I stopped more than half of these starry-eyed appreneurs from going ahead was they just didn't have that plan at all. So this one-pager canvas that you can see up here, it's inspired by the Lean Business Canvas, and it's just a way to really quickly map out an at-a-glance snapshot of that strategy. It's not a pitch, although it includes a pitch. It's not a go-to-market. It's not even a business plan yet, but it's the mud map that you must have as a minimum before you go looking for buy-in from outside collaborators, such as your developer partners and any investors. So why do you need it? Let's look at the case of Brian. He came to me with an amazing idea. His father had suffered for a long time with a degenerative disease necessitating more and more home aids of various kinds. Sadly, when Brian's father passed, those aids would have been headed for the trash heap. But other folks needed those aids for their loved ones. So what if there was an app where you could jump on and you could know that somebody had already logged on and they had some reputation of listing those home aids, they were useful, they put up the photos, and then you, also verified, go and buy them at a reasonable price. The home aids avoid going into landfill, both parties win. What a great app. So Brian, I said, you want an app where first someone can log in and be verified, and then list their home aids with photos. Someone else, like them, can go and buy those home aids. Brian, I think you just invented Facebook Marketplace. Except it's going to cost you $100K north to build. So why not just start with Facebook Marketplace first? Now, Brian was so invested in the emotion. Of course, that's not his real name. And I've also modified some details of the business. But what is at the core of what I just told you, that story, that heartbreaking story, was so often the case for many wannabe appreneurs who have a lot of passion. But he'd forgotten to look at it from a practical angle. How would he differentiate his idea? How would he bring something that was any different from the other options? And what if his early customers were already waiting and he didn't need a fancy app just yet? Brian can save himself from feeling disappointed, like he kind of was after his discussion with me, if he just spent some time with the app canvas that I'm going to share with you today. So, how do you do it? How do you use it? First thing, together, right? You want to have all of your team involved. So you want to get them together and give their buy-in. Another subject that I'm going to spend a lot of time on in other talks is about being a solopreneur versus being a team. TLDR, it's a losing proposition. I'm sorry, but often if you are solo, the statistics say that you're going to fail more often than not. So the number one thing I would say, let's put it this way, is that if you're going to succeed with an app-based business, your skill needs to be working with others. That needs to be right up the top of your skill set. That's all I'll say for now. So number one, you're going to do this canvas together with your team. The second is you're going to do it with buy-in. You've got your team. By the time you walk away from that session where you're going through this canvas, everything on that sheet should be something that you all have committed to putting into the pot, right? If you have one of your team's expertise or time that they're going to spend listed down there on that sheet, that has to be something that they agree with, especially if it's something like the unique value or the unfair advantage that's going to kind of define how your app even works. So let's imagine something that I saw a bit, which was the operations person, like the financial folks who kind of wind up being involved with the startup, those ops folks. If you're that person, don't accept being told to go and build this early canvas on your own. You can't just take it away and have them, other founders, throw it over the fence to you. You need to get the whole of the team. So you're going to schedule a Zoom call. You're going to use a live shared whiteboard like Google Docs, Microsoft Word 365, Canva, anything that you are familiar with where you can have a shared online canvas. Alternatively, set up a Zoom call and then have a shared canvas via Zoom, which I believe is a feature now. Just drop the JPEG image that I'm going to be sharing here, and it'll be also in the resources for Totally a Thing. Put that in there. You can even print out the canvas onto an A4 sheet and then go to a table and then have a big sheet of paper and pens, butcher's paper, whatever you got. And just, if you're a visual thinker, just map it out with some texters on a table, or use an iPad. But the main thing is organic energy. You don't want to be someone who's just like trying to produce this hard-edged sort of document that's huge, great big thing with all this fancy fonts or whatever. It's got to be dynamic, and that's why I have done this document. Like look at this thing. Okay, I've tried to make it folksy and loosey-goosey because this is what you need to do. This thing needs to have energy, and you are going to keep reviewing this document. You're going to keep coming back to it. It can't be some baked-in thing with a bunch of crisp computer-rendered fonts that are just going to make it look like another boring business document. You've got to have the life and soul of your team in here. All right, and it should take less than 45 minutes. Maybe schedule an hour-long Zoom call. All right, so what are we going to put in this document? Well, first thing is nailing that problem, offering, and just general shape of what your app is going to be. Now, your app has to be a business first. So what I suggest doing, and I've put it in the bottom of the sheet here, hopefully you can see that, right down the bottom, is this, let me see if I can point to it, this bit here. You know how, well, what we do is, and then so far we have. So for Brian, it would be, you know how it's really hard to deal with all the assisted living aids when you have lost a loved one who used those aids. So the problem is going to be the assisted living aids, and the target is the bereaved kin of someone, not the loved one who's passed away, obviously. So now, the second part of it, well, what we do is we know what it's like. So we provide a two-sided marketplace for those assisted living aids. with authentic buyers and sellers. So far, we have rehomed 20k worth of homemades that would have gone to landfill. Now that's something like what Brian told me about his app. He'd already got some sales, which was awesome, but the belief was that getting an app would really help things move along. Now, that formula is called the Gaddy pitch. It's also super handy just in and of itself. And once you've got that down, you're going to distill that and enter it onto the sheet. Please refer to the show notes, by the way. I've got a lot of detail in there that breaks down how to actually fill those items at the top of the sheet out. So you've got your problem. It's going to be, the problem is something that the folks who pay you money experience. It's really hard to deal with all those assisted living aids. The target market, that's going to be the folks who have lost a loved one. And then there's the offering, which is the two-sided marketplace. Now, metrics. It's really important that these aren't just what we call vanity metrics, right? It can't be just some impressive sounding number like, we've got 5 million users or whatever. And there could be people who haven't even logged on for a year. In Brian's case, he's come to me and he's said, look, we've got 20k GTV, gross transaction value. So in the last year of him using just his cobbled together platform, Brian's managed to have 20k of transactions go through of folks buying and selling these assisted living aids in this example that I'm using. Now, unique value, let's say Brian said to me it's going to be authenticity. The users have been checked and are known to have looked after the stuff. It's also going to be Brian's personal experience of the target market. And the concept, of course, is something that's very common in technology, which is this two-sided marketplace. And, of course, I already mentioned a big problem with Brian's idea. He's basically invented Facebook Marketplace. And also, it's an emotional area. And like I said, passion is great. It's good that you've got some human driver that's behind this that you can get in there. But it might not be a very big total addressable market. Like remember, customers are the ones that are giving you the money. Are those folks who, the kin who are trying to sell or deal with the problem that they have of these assisted living aids. They need to move on. Another issue, this unique value of authentic users, that's a tough thing to sell. To me, as an app developer, I can understand the idea, but it really translates to authentication on a platform like Facebook. To an investor, it doesn't really mean a lot at all. To a customer, okay, it's authentic, it's great that you understand my problem, but I also don't want to be paying too much money. So how are you going to get that cut through with that concept? How are you going to just get through the noise and deliver that message as being something that's unique and important? So the good thing about this canvas is there is not a lot of room to put stuff on it. One of the most important things about this canvas is it's going to help you distill out that core essence of what it is that's going to make this app work. And when folks try to put far too much into something like this, and they've got 10,000 features and all these dot points, and they want to say a million things about it, that's a warning to me. That's a big red flag that there's too many moving parts and it's not going to come together and work as an app. Let me tell you, I built an app, one of my big apps that I spend a lot of time on. I identified a technical need in the market for a particular feature set that the competitor apps that are already out there just weren't fulfilling. But it turned out that folks already had workarounds that they were using. They already had kind of recognized as a problem, and in their various communities, they were highly resistant to somebody like me coming in and saying, hey, I've got a solution. It's an app. It's only going to cost you X dollars. So it can be, even if you've got something that people really need, they want it, they have a problem. The difficulty is that go-to-market strategy. And when you've got a very small niche, that can be fantastic. But it also means that you now have a job to do, to build a strategy to go into that marketplace, find those folks where they are, and reach them with your message. So that brings me to the alternatives section, which is up here somewhere. You want to fill that out with what people are using right now. So for Brian, it could be Facebook Marketplace. It could be selling it back to the pharmacy or the community groups. If you go out and you talk to your current customers, the people who would be your customers, and you say, look, we are going to do this for you. We're going to solve this problem. What is it that pops up straight away? So don't even lead with your offering, just talk about the problem. The Gaddy pitch is, how folks who are bereaved after their loved ones used some assisted living aids have so much difficulty selling those aids. Now, if you can find somebody who that resonates with, who, maybe you could contact a pharmacy or a community group that was selling these aids and ask to speak to their customers. Well, what would they say about how they were dealing with it now? Like, some of them would be taking them to landfill, right? That's their workaround. Obviously, the important thing that Brian is saying, well, we're avoiding throwing good quality gear into landfill. So that's a feature. It's a good thing. But the current workaround, that's what people are doing right now. So you've got to think, what's going to go through their head when you raise this as a problem? Well, that's going to be, in the front of their mind that, I'll just take it and throw it in the tip. So you need to find some way to get that cut through, and listing these alternatives in that section is going to help you do that. All right, let's move on. Now we're going to fill out this, moving more towards the right of the sheet. We've already filled out the section with the problem. We've got our offering up there. We've got some of those other sections up there. I want to look at the channels now. So if there's one thing I would like you to please take away from this talk, it's just this one thing. Your mobile app is a channel. It's not a solution in and of itself. A problem I used to see with appreneurs that approached me to build an app is that they would look at successful apps in the App Store or Google Play, and they'd say, oh, you know what? I want an app just like that. Just like, Uber or Instagram or whatever it happened to be, but for X, where X is their idea. So, for assisted living aid sales, whatever. And it's kind of like going to a video production house and saying, I want a video to go viral, please. It's like the people who are making your video, they can't just press a go viral button and make it go viral. That's not how it works. The successful apps that you see in the store have probably been there for 18 months, absolute minimum, probably many years longer than that. There is zero discoverability. Zero. If you ship an app, I promise you, it's just going to sink below the waves. It'll sink without a trace, unless you're going to be doing some sort of marketing. If you go into the App Store and you see all these apps popping up with, features from Apple or Google, and, you find yourself just, appearing there, it just popped up is something I hear a lot. Well, when those apps just pop up, somebody somewhere has done a lot of marketing work for that to happen. Let's go back to Brian. Brian understands that because authenticity is so important, it's a unique value for his app. He's recruiting a talented part-time community manager to work across events. He's going to go to social media, do newsletters, and in that personal, customer-centric way, that social enterprise profile, that community manager is just going to be consistently doing that drumbeat to get that message out there. And also Brian's gone to a local sports star who's like a key opinion leader and a community arts figure to be the customer zero in a very visible sort of way on social media platforms and in local events. And Brian's done this by niching down to local areas. He's not trying to run his app at the moment outside of where he can physically get to. So that's an awesome strategy that Brian's got there. But what that amounts to is costs. So you've got fixed costs, which pretty much are one-time spends that are capital outlays, and those could be, let's say for Brian's app, we've got an initial app development of say 100k, which is the figure I quoted to Brian right at the beginning. Now that's going to be the user interface designer. It's going to be a bunch of folks working hard to get the initial build done. We might hire some folks on Upwork alongside, the main tech partner. And, we do a big push to try to get just the very core features of that initial app development. And beyond that, so initial app development, 100k, that's one line item. Then you've got, say, legals and accounting and other setup, maybe another 20k worth of spend. They're all going to be sort of one-time setup. Then you've got your growing costs. And I mentioned this community manager. Let's say they're only working, say, 20 hours a week, but they could, if they're good, they're probably still going to cost you 50k. And that's an ongoing cost that increases as you get more and more customers. You need more and more time. That person might have to go up to a full-time role. Also, you've got hosting and domains and ongoing app maintenance costs. So you might not have all of the big, huge initial team that you had on Upwork, but you might have sort of one engineer doing maintenance. You might have your project manager or engineering manager, whoever it is your tech person. So they're going to be wanting, ongoing costs to be defrayed for them. Finally, we just want to put some items into that customers block over there. So we should have a pretty good idea if we've already done some sales. It's one thing I like about the Gaddy pitch is it includes that third section, which is so far we have, and then we've got, say, our social proof or our initial sales. And that's why it's really important that you already have something in that customer slot. If everything that you've got is just an idea, that could be problematic. Now imagine you try to go and sell this to collaborators and folks who are like, I want you to come on board. I want you to be my CTO, or I want, you to do my app for me. As engineers, we hate working on failing projects. And if I see that someone's, got a chunk of money from somewhere, but they've got no sales, they're not selling anything, that's a really big problem. Like, not only is the app probably going to flounder because, we're not actually testing it against real life customers. What I typically see with apps like that is they flip-flop. Every time the app sort of gets shipped, they'll say, we're not getting any traction, no one's downloading the app, no one's using it, we just need to change some features, we just need to do this. and it's a nightmare to work on. But if you've already got some customers, then all you've got to do is look at automating inside of an app the transactions that are already happening. So we want to have some entries in that area where it's got customers. In Brian's case, he's already arranged those key opinion leaders. He's got his customer zeros who are blogging on their Facebook account or whatever, and just helping build up the buzz. Now down the bottom here, we've got our costs and our revenue sections. I'm going to get to those. I'm also going to talk a little bit about this secret sauce part that's up here. So revenue is obviously important. It's good to be realistic. I suggest that the way to think about this one is that think about what you need to make in order to run this as a business. And this is really important if you're looking at some sort of social enterprisey type of thing, which is what Brian was kind of doing. Oh, this is really important for society or whatever. Now that is important. But to make it successful, you need to get people on board. And people aren't going to get on board if they think it's just a big sinkhole and, money's going to get poured into it and it's just going to fail. So that's why you need to show that you have operating profits that are actually going to be able to be plowed back in and keep the thing running. So for Brian, he might say, well, a percentage of all transactions. We'll take, say, 20%. And Brian's costed that out. And let's say if he can get to 1 million transactions in a year, then 20% of that's going to be 200K. And that could be enough to start offsetting the cost of the initial app build plus the costs incurred, and starting to sort of get to a break even at about 18 months. And my advice to you would be that 18 months is a sort of a good early cost break even. You need to have that sort of runway at the very least. So that's revenue. Think about different models. Are you going to clip the ticket on those transactions like Brian is, taking a percentage? Or maybe you could require a membership or a subscription. Or you could have affiliate sales or value adds like, say, truck rentals or tradesmen installers or something like that in Brian's case. There's a lot of different models. So think about it a lot and work with your team to come up with the best option and pick one that's actually going to work and put that on your sheet. Secret sauce. This is going to be something that is going to endear you to the folks that you want to get on board. So potential investors, whether this could be like mum and dad investors or, actual market capital of some sort. You need to be able to prove why you are the ones to execute this. Why would I believe that you can ship this app and make it a success? Why would I not just download a clone of the app that was released after yours, but at half the price, only 10% of the transactions? So what you need is an unfair advantage. So Brian, his unfair advantage is that he has personal experience as a founder of that target market, being somebody who's experienced the bereavement. He knows how to reach out to customers in a genuine way. He thinks that he can curate the sellers in the marketplace, and he's going to train his community managers so that pricing is fair, the goods are sold in good condition. And Brian's authentic connection to his target market is going to provide his customers with a perceived value, so they feel like they're getting something beyond just the goods. They're getting something authentic, and they're not going to landfill, for example. So when you think about that area of unique value, about your secret sauce, about your unfair advantage, I suggest you have a think about the really great movie Princess Bride. There's a scene in there where the hero has been so badly hurt that his two collaborators, they have to use a wheelbarrow to get the hero to the castle that they're going to storm to try to rescue the princess. Now, outside of the castle, there's the three of them. I can imagine they're a startup, right? And they list their assets as Wesley's brain, Fezzik's strength, and Inigo's sword. And then they think, well, no, it's not enough. But then Wesley says, oh, if only we had a wheelbarrow. And of course they do, because Wesley's like sitting in the wheelbarrow. Now, the point of all that is it's very easy for us to overlook things that we bring to the table. Something that seems obvious that I or you as a founder might have as a skill, like the ability to, manage competing priorities. Perhaps if you've got a family and you've been looking after relatives in Brian's case, you've got a lot of time management, you've got resilience, you know how to deal with government bureaucracy, perhaps if they're dealing with NDAS. There's a lot of things there. But you've got to look into that. What is the irreplaceable knowledge? What is the domain knowledge that you exclusively have? Think about your location. For Brian, he's, potentially located in an area that's not too far from where there's a lot of retirement villages or something like that. Public housing, it could be he's got a lot of connections to community. There's a lot of things that you might bring to the table. So don't forget to rank those and then put the most important 2 or 3. Don't put a bunch of distractors in there. Put the most important ones up onto your sheet. I'll just briefly mention about cost structures again, because it's something that we cover off in this sheet. We've got balancing between our revenue and our costs there, our fixed and growing costs. It's very tempting to just kind of whitewash that or to be over-optimistic. It's true that you don't want at this early stage to get bogged down with like small ticket items, like a little bit of costs here or there. The canvas is meant to be a big picture document. And later you can have your detailed financial plan. But for now, the key question is this. Can your revenue outpace your costs soon enough that you don't run out of runway for your app? Runway is that times going out into the future. And, I mentioned 18 months is a good figure. I think 12 months is too short. I see startups saying, I've taken 6 months leave without pay. It has to work in 6 months. It's not going to work in 6 months. It's very important that you map out those cost structures because it's going to help you predict operationally what you can achieve as an app-based startup. Another thing that I see a lot as well is that apps are often seen as the big savior for your startup. Your app is going to launch, people are going to download it, you'll make $1 million. And what often happens, as I alluded to earlier, is that people place too much emphasis on their MVP. The MVP for a app, it should embarrass you when it first comes out. It should be so brain dead that it almost doesn't work. And the thing about your app concept is you've already been using these alternatives, right? You've been using your Facebook Marketplace in Brian's case or whatever. So your app is just a channel, right? So you've already been selling things. Another example I like to give is a client who was building an app for meals for folks who are intolerant to certain foods. And this client wanted to have an app that would detect your location. It would then produce the correct foods, and then you could show you where the shops are, where that food item could be bought. I said to this client, look, go down to the local shopping centre where some of these stores might be that are on your list, and go to people in the shopping centre and approach them and say, hey, do you have food allergies? And if they say yes, pull out your list and say, hey, did you know there's 2 stores in this shopping centre that sell these foods? And they go, oh yeah, I did, of course, I was already on my way there. Or, no, I didn't know that. That's fantastic. Then you say to them, I have this PDF listing all these other stores. Oh, fantastic. Can I get a copy of that? Yeah, sure, but I need your email address so I can email you updates, and it's $5 for this sheet. Now, if you can get somebody to pay you $5 for a printed out sheet, that is a sale. That is a start. That is the beginning of your cost structure. If you can't sell that, why would an app sell it for you? Digging into costs, I want to talk very briefly about the future as well. So one of the app design recommendations that I'll make, and this is an engineering topic, and I outline it in a talk I did called Mobile Mindset. Have a look at the show notes. I'll link it down there. The hosting for apps, especially ones that have some kind of back end, can be expensive. And if it's not done well, it can be very steep. So as your user base increases, if this cost line is also increasing at the same sort of rate, that can really eat your revenue. So take a good guess at what those early estimates would be for your costs and watch them. You cannot afford for them to be scaling up too high. For example, I've put in for costs here in the show notes. Growing costs could be organic, authentic social media marketing, $50,000 per year, hosting domains and ongoing app development maintenance costs, another $50,000 per year. One cost that folks often miss is what I call boots on the ground. That I can illustrate with an example. So let's say we've got Brian, right? He gets an urgent message from Carol. Carol's his community manager. It arrives on Saturday morning. A customer has bought $2,000 worth of homemades on Brian's scheme, his platform that he's building using Facebook Marketplace and so on. And on arrival, half of that equipment is broken. The customer's very upset. He's recorded a video on Instagram blasting Brian's app, blasting Brian's team. Now, the customer doesn't speak English, but in the particular community, the message is getting across because of, Instagram being what it is, and you can put titles on there. The customer didn't understand some things about the platform, and now he's really, really upset. Now, Carol has tried to help, but Brian's business risks being torpedoed in that early community, that early small niche that he's got when folks see those Instagram posts. So Brian abandons his Saturday plans. He phones up his key opinion leader, Tony, and asks for help. Tony is super busy. He can't do anything, but he calls back and he gives Brian a name for someone who knows that particular community. He's got somebody who can speak to them. And about 4 hours later, Brian's turned the situation around, and another Instagram post is put up by this client who's saying, "Oh, look, the matter's been resolved. I'm happy. I'm pleased that I got what I needed in the end, and everything's fine." But now Brian has chalked up some favours and some overtime with his KOLs and his staff. He's probably spent quite a bit on rushing around in his van, sorting things out. Now, this sort of thing is not a one-off. When you start building apps, you might think, oh, it's all electronic. It's all just in the app. It's all just going to happen, pressing buttons. But the phenomenon of boots on the ground is all about stuff that needs to happen in the time zone where your app is being used. So if it gets downloaded in, say, New Zealand, that's 2 hours ahead, or if it gets downloaded in Manila, which is 2 hours behind, you need boots on the ground in those time zones to respond quickly with the language of the folks that are in those time zones, with the culture and with the type of market that exists over there, so people who understand what's going on. I was lucky enough to see the rollout of Uber in Australia because they were using one of the co-work spaces that I was in. And there were just constant requests for help. There were complaints. There were drivers smashing their phones and technical problems and regulatory issues. It was just constant. But looking at the app, Uber, on your phone, you have no idea about that. That is going to be your app. If you've got an app that has a high degree of those boots on the ground costs, they're going to go up and to the right as your customer base increases. And it's a number one problem with folks who just, I'm going to go to the world with my app, I'll just publish it everywhere. Suddenly you've got boots on the ground around the entire globe and it's just going to eat you alive. You're going to have some very upset customers. Everybody's going to uninstall. All right, so I will leave it there. You've got your canvas. It's all filled out. What do you do with it now? Don't lose it. This document is small. It's a one-pager. So keep it live. Keep it handy. Pin it to the wall. If you did it on a big sheet of paper, just take a shot of it with your phone or scan it in and then store it in like a Google Doc or Canva or Microsoft 365, somewhere that all your team can access it and share the link to your team. And obviously keep it, confidential, just to your team. You don't want folks outside seeing those numbers and everything. But, you've completed it. Now, the next thing you need to do, get your calendar, make a calendar entry for a month's time to go back and revisit that document and check in on your assumptions. Also, when you have to create your next pitch deck or anything like that, any team setting, you can use that canvas to make sure that you're on track and remind yourself and your team of what you agreed that you all brought to the table. Somebody's got a fancy idea for an initiative that they want. It's going to be amazing. Well, you can check that against that cost structure that you sketched out. Somebody wants to buy fancy new chairs or go on a team trip. You can look at the planned customers and channels and your unique value. How does having new chairs fit with that? Sometimes you have to onboard new core team members. This document is absolutely invaluable for that. You can pull it out and you can quickly at a glance give them a map of everything that you're trying to achieve, something that's up to date. You can, once they're all signed up and, on board on the cap table or whatever, you can give them a copy of that document. All right. Just to summarize then, so we have our canvas, our app startup canvas, and you need it to basically make your idea realistic, make it so that you can actually bring it to market. You want to do it with your co-founders, get them all together around a call. And your problem offering and metrics needs to illustrate how you're selling a product that people need. So use the Gaddy pitch for that. You know how X, well, what we do is Y. So far, we've done social proof. Now, you're going to use the canvas once you've filled out that problem section to start checking to see what are the challenges. So you're going to be distilling out those alternatives that folks might use. You're going to be looking at metrics that will allow you to test whether it's actually succeeding or not. Remember that the app is only a channel, and you need to look at how you're going to sell the core value proposition of your app before you even have the app in place. And think about that revenue. So you're selling it, how are you going to structure the revenue? Is it going to be a clip the ticket, or is it going to be some other methodology? Think about your secret sauce, all of the things you bring to the table. Think about your cost structure, especially boots on the ground. And then finally, make your plan to revisit the canvas and to keep it current. All right, this has been Totally a Thing. I am Sarah Smith. Thank you. Please subscribe to my Substack. The link is down below. That is the only thing that keeps paying for these videos. And you will also find a ton, an absolute ton more stuff for apps, startups, and technology on Totally a Thing.